Namaste, good morning. Today I'd like to touch upon a couple of questions that I received as usual, and then we move on to any questions which anyone might want to ask. I was rereading a book after a very long time by my teacher Ramesh ji. It is on Guru Purnima. But I really liked the opening of the book, which I will read out. It's one paragraph, so please indulge me. All that the Guru can do for you is to help you to arrive at the base from which the quantum leap into the ultimate understanding can happen. I'm going to repeat that. All that the Guru can do for you is to help you arrive at the base from which the quantum leap into the ultimate understanding can happen. This base is the totally empty, silent mind that is extremely alert, yet passive enough to receive the ultimate benediction. And it is only the total unconditional acceptance of non-doership that can bring this about. I will repeat the second paragraph. This base is the totally empty, silent mind that is extremely alert, yet passive enough to receive the ultimate benediction. And it is the only total unconditional acceptance of non-doership that can bring this about. And this is what the teaching is about. Accepting that no one, nobody, neither others nor myself are the doers of their actions, just as Krishna has said in the Bhagavad Gita throughout. Now I recalled a very beautiful story of Eknath Maharaj. Eknath loved the common people. He was a Brahmin. So as a result of this, the Brahmins hated him. They were disgusted that he loved common people. One of their own broke the rules, so to speak. So one day, when Eknath went to take a dip in the sacred Godavari river, he came out, walking back. One Brahmin came up to him and spat on him. So Eknath turned around, went back to the Godavari and took another dip and came back out. And the Brahmin spat on him again. And again he went back to the Godavari. And this happened at least 100 times. And then when he came out of the Godavari, the Brahmin fell at his feet and said, I acknowledge your greatness. That you really tolerated my abusive behavior. And Eknath replied, not at all. I should be thanking you because if it weren't for you, I would not have had the opportunity to take 100 dips in the Godavari river. The thought would not have arose. And now the thinking mind will come in and say, oh, how irrational is this? Does this mean we should not respond? Does this mean we should not react? And then the essence of the teaching is lost. Therefore, there is a difference between hearing and listening. In one, we bring the entire baggage of our preconceived ideas and notions and so on and so forth. And therefore, as Ramesh ji would say, every time the hand comes up, yes, but, yes, but, yes, but. And the other is listening with a vacant mind, totally open to the words that are being absorbed by the consciousness. So we'll take up some questions now. I'd like to look at those which have come in. What is the technique of meditation in Advaita? Is it the process of observing the thoughts? Advaita is Advaita, not two. And therefore, you will be surprised as to how simple the technique is, because it's not really a technique. In Advaita, if you look at meditation as a practice, as Nisargadatta Maharaj would say, consciousness contemplating on consciousness is the meditation. Which means, if we just sit and rest in our being, I am, rather than projecting out into the world, into the dream of thoughts and thinking, but we bring our attention back to the fact that we exist. Therefore, consciousness is contemplating on itself. Because as he would say, throughout the day we are so busy making use of consciousness, so we have to turn it around and be established as consciousness. That is meditation as a practice. Now, while one attempts this, thoughts may arise. Thoughts are bound to arise. And the understanding happens at some point that To know that the thoughts have arisen means there's a witness, there's a background that knows that thoughts have arisen. So it is not really a process of observing thoughts, because that becomes like a practice based on doership. But when one is resting in one's being, resting in the I am, resting in the presence, and thoughts appear, what happens is usually we run with the thought in the duration of time and thinking happens. But what starts happening now with this resting is that one witnesses that thoughts are coming up, and one is not running away with the thought in the duration of time. Just as Maharaj would say, one is witnessing cars going by on the road. We don't start running after each car. That's what starts happening more and more. Not observing the thoughts as an individual doing something. Please, this is very important. But witnessing, being the background, so to speak, on which all this arises. Now, as I have said this before, it was Aurobindo who pointed out that what about the rest of the waking state? Meditation as a practice is only dealing with the inner being. What about the rest of the hours of your day? And Rameshji gave a beautiful one sentence definition of meditation during the day. And he said, true meditation is witnessing whatever arises in the moment as movements in consciousness. Witnessing whatever happens during the day, all the so-called ups and downs, pleasures and pains, as movements in consciousness. Because if you were not conscious, you could not witness all this. So once again, the look is reversed back within, so to speak. You see, there were great yogis like Bhagwan Nityananda, who was an Avadut. So they used to have one eye always looking out into the world and one eye looking in. It's called the Hamsa Mudra, if I remember correctly. They were always absorbed, yet they had to function in the world. So what happens in this meditation, whether it is your half an hour morning meditation, 1 hour, you will see that it permeates through the day, and more witnessing happens. Witnessing happens. You get some bad news, you are bound to react, but you find that you are not as involved with the thinking mind and all the scenarios, imaginary situations it creates. All that drama which used to happen has started to subside. That is what starts happening. You notice over a period of time, oh, things have changed. What used to really upset me a year ago, 6 months ago, I feel things are different now. Someone asked Rameshji, How do you deal with problems in daily life? And he said, I have the firm understanding that if God gave me problems, he will have to solve it. What was he pointing to? The absence of the thinking mind based on doership that is engaged in the problem. That is the difference. Which means the problem is solved by the working mind. When the thinking mind is absent, then the working mind is given the space to deal with the situation. That is meditation. A surgeon performing surgery is in working mind mode. All his years of experience have come together at that moment, and he is focused on the task at hand. That is meditation. But because a senior doctor told him that, my friend, you better be careful because this man is very high up in the government. And if something goes wrong, you will lose your license, you will be held liable, and so on and so forth. And suddenly these thoughts start coming, my God, I better be careful. What will happen? That is the monster of the thinking mind, which has taken one away from being in the moment, in the working mind. And so, what was meditation is now disturbed by the thinking mind of the ego that has started creating stories. Next question. Ramana Maharshi said, surrender all your burdens to God. Surrender all your thoughts, feelings, emotions, pains, likes, dislikes, and everything to God. Can one surrender, or does surrender happen? If surrendering happens, then should one do nothing? It's actually a very good question. Ramana Maharshi says, surrender all your likes, dislikes, etc., etc., etc. to God. Now the question is, does this surrender happen, or does one have to do anything to surrender? If surrendering happens, then should one do nothing? Now, if Ramana Maharshi says this and it appeals to you, what will happen? So far, you were not surrendering all these things to God. Now, Ramana Maharshi has told you, surrender all these things to God. Now, you're going to keep quiet and you're going to wonder, do I do anything to surrender, or will it happen on its own? Very important question. Now, if Ramana Maharshi said that and it appealed to you, something touched your heart, that there's something in this. The doing which happens is a spontaneous doing. In what sense? Let's put it this way. My teacher would say, please accept that whatever you decide to do in any moment is based on your genetics and your conditioning since childhood, since birth, over neither of which do you have control. And whatever you do in life now, whatever you say, whatever actions you take are based on these two factors, your genetics and your conditioning. Now, let's keep that aside. Do whatever you like, but the results are never in your control. That is your own life experience. Do whatever you like, and sometimes you get what you want. Many times you don't get what you want. And sometimes what you get is completely unexpected. Many times for the worse, sometimes for the better. Which of these three things happens is not in your control. But does it mean you stop doing anything? You have to do as an act. We are human beings. We have to act. In that sense, there is doing. Knowing that the action, the doing, is truly not your action. Why? Because it's based on so many factors beyond your control. You had to be alive to do something. Is that in your control? You had to be breathing. Your heart had to be pumping. Is all that in your control? So when you accept that nobody truly does anything, neither others nor myself, surrender happens with that understanding. It is not a deliberate doing like, okay, Ramana Maharshi said, oh, this like I surrender to him. This dislike I surrender to him. Not that. Understand and accept that all your thoughts, feelings, emotions, whatever comes up, don't belong to you as an individual. Surrender them to God means surrender them to consciousness, not an individual God sitting up in the heavens. Surrender them to consciousness instead of taking ownership of them as me and mine, which is the ego's favorite pastime. So, in that sense, the doing happens and the surrender happens. Because someone might say, no, I don't agree with this concept. I don't agree with this at all. And that person is entitled to not agree. That is destined. Whether someone accepts this, does not accept it, is destined. So in that sense, surrender to what Ramana Maharshi has said may not happen. That may not be destined for that person. So it's not an active act of doing in order to surrender. Most of those familiar with Rameshji's teaching will remember the story on free will, which he used to often say. When he was asked, does a human being have free will? Once upon a time, a man received a letter that his grandfather had passed away, and he had left his bungalow to this man. So he went, made a visit, saw quite a well-kept bungalow. Grandfather was affluent, looked around, noticed there was an attic, climbed up the stairs, opened the attic, and in the corner of the attic, he saw a wooden chest, a big wooden chest, locked. He was very intrigued. He didn't have the key, so he broke the lock. And he was shocked at what he saw. He saw bundles upon bundles upon bundles of currency notes, all stacked in that chest, and he was overjoyed. So he took that wooden chest and he went straight to his bank. He met the bank manager and he said, I would like to make a very large deposit with your bank. And the bank manager said, give me some time, my tellers will have to count it, and meanwhile, let's have a cup of tea. And at the end of that cup of tea, the bank manager came and told this man that I am very sorry to disappoint you, but all those currency notes are counterfeit. They are fake. Now, does this mean that the man had currency notes or not? Of course, he had currency notes. But what was their value? Useless. Does a human being have free will? Of course he does, because that is the way we function. That is the mechanics of life as we know it. We have to exercise this free will. But when teachings come to us which show us that, look, firstly, nothing is in your control in terms of the outcome of your free will. You never know. Most of the times we don't get what we want. That is not in our control. What our free will is based on is really not in our control. And there are so many factors that are not in our control. Do you really have free will? This precious free will which you have preserved and identified with so strongly, is it that precious? Or why not let the Creator, the Source, God, consciousness, which has created this entire manifestation and all the beautiful as well as ugly things within it, why not acknowledge its role? So if this understanding happens on the value of one's free will, automatically the sense of doership starts getting diminished. Lastly, someone has been persistently sending me this question on astrology. Since the outbreak of the coronavirus, many astrologers have given various theories and dates. The thing which is bothering me is that when everything is God's will, then do the placements of these planets and their positions depend also on God's will? Because without the absolute, nothing moves. How can a seeker like me make a comparison or see this science with the eyes of the Advaita teaching? Everything is God's will means the position of the planets is also God's will. There's nothing that is not God's will. And various astrologers have given different dates, different theories, so on and so forth, because each astrologer's reading depends on his or her ability and the way they have studied, the way they have seen it. So you will never get one result from all. That is why you have so many opinions. You know, in ancient India, in the Gurukul system, the Guru used to see the horoscope of the child to see what qualities the child came with. It was not really just a predictive science in that sense. What is this child best suited for? Where will this child excel in studies, in arts? And then the training was taken up. So it is a very useful science in that sense. Any esoteric science has a lot of value. Now, tarot reading, which today is used merely to predict, tarot reading came from hundreds of years ago, and it was a tool where if you knew how to read, you could see all that was going on in the subconscious through the cards. It became like a mirror reflection. So when someone was confused or didn't know the right course of action to take, and they had studied and read the tarot, they would do a reading for themselves or for others, and all the hidden subconscious agendas, thoughts, feelings were projected onto it. It was a very advanced science. It was the science of liberation, you can call it that. Today, what has happened is these sciences have become merely predictive because we feed on fear. What will happen to me tomorrow? What will happen to me 6 months from now? I want a reading. And then what happens? You go from one astrologer to another astrologer to a third astrologer. And the mother of Pondicherry said we do this with everything. We go from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor. We go from guru to guru to guru to guru. And I said this story before, I think a few sessions ago, when Paul Brunton, who authored A Search in Secret India, went to study astrology with India's leading astrologer in Varanasi. And at the end of the course, he asked his astrology guru, "Sir, do you read for yourself? Do you read your horoscope for yourself?" And the guru replied, "I used to. But then when I accepted that whatever happens in life is God's will, I stopped reading my horoscope." And we should all know today exactly how much free will we have when a little virus has shut us all up in our homes all over the world. I'm quite sure that this has been a very big shift in this basic understanding of how little is in our control. The point is, we forget this. Okay, let's see if there are any. Yes, is that Jerome? Have I pronounced your name correctly?
Hi, Jerome. Jerome. So, I have a question about witnessing. I understand the spirituality as purifying mind. And so I can see that witnessing prevents further clutter in the mind. But does it also purify existing clutter?
In fact, first it purifies the existing clutter.
So how so? What is the mechanism?
You see, the mechanism is that up till this point, we were operating blindly on our conditioning. Now what happens is witnessing brings about fresh conditioning. So I'll give you an example. Let's say there was someone in your life who really bugged you and you didn't like. And a teaching comes along one fine day and tells you that, my friend, please understand that this person is acting based on their past history, their genetics, and their conditioning. So, this is the way they were made. What will happen is that the clutter in your mind, in this case, of not liking this person for who they are, the light of understanding comes. And with that light of understanding that, yes, this person could not help being the way they are. Maybe their mother treated them badly, I don't know. But they could not help it. The sting of doership in that particular relationship is removed. And you start witnessing that relationship more objectively. So the clutter in the mind, which had built up all these years, what happens to that now? When the entire understanding has shifted your perception of what's really going on, that clutter will dissolve. It is bound to dissolve. Because with witnessing now, the thinking mind, which was relying on the backup of that clutter as the fuel to fuel the thinking mind, is running out of that fuel. So it will clear the existing clutter. That is what witnessing does.
I see. So then once you start witnessing, it must accelerate.
When witnessing starts happening, you will notice that you are less and less involved in the drama and stories of life, and therefore witnessing happens more and more till you find that, my God, I'm actually living in the present moment now, what I read about all these years, thanks to this witnessing. Because why? I'm not doing anything to witness. I've noticed that my thinking mind, which was going into all these directions in the past, is no longer doing it. And when the thinking mind is not going like an octopus with its tentacles all around, I'm already the witness. I'm in the present moment. I'm more and more present. This is bound to happen.
Yes.
That is the grace of the teaching.
Good, thanks.
Yes, is that Bhadra?
Yes, sir. Am I audible?
Yes.
So my question is regarding about mind, the digressing of the mind when I'm witnessing. Let's say when I'm looking at something through my eyes, uh, consciously, and my eyes don't move when I look, just by itself. But when I'm witnessing, when I'm paying attention to one particular thought, why does the mind just moves by itself, like without my will? What is it that is happening?
That is the nature of the mind. The nature of the mind is to move. That is the monkey mind. It also shows you that even that is not in your control. So, is there any point in trying to control the mind? Your own experience, what you have said just now, proves to you the nature of the mind and that you cannot control it. So, this can end up being an exercise in frustration.
Yeah.
Why not accept that this is the nature of the mind and all that is needed is to witness its nature? All
Yes.
that is needed is to witness this nature of the mind that keeps jumping from one thing to another. Let's take a very practical example. You are sitting in a restaurant with your date. Okay. Now, someone walks behind the person you are sitting with. Your eyes go there. Isn't that a distraction as far as the person who's sitting with you is concerned? Why did your eyes go there? It got distracted. There was movement, it got distracted. That is the nature of the mind. See? But when this is seen, what starts happening? When witnessing starts happening and you're sitting with someone in the restaurant, you will find that because your mind is so vacant, you are completely absorbed in what the person in front of you is saying. You are completely present. So the eyes which used to dart earlier have stopped darting, not because of you stopping them darting or doing something to stop them darting, which is what you started by saying, but merely allowing and being present to what is, that stops happening. So the exercise in concentration can be a very frustrating exercise. And that is why, if you were on this talk last Sunday or the one before that, I gave the example where Ramana Maharshi said this man kept digging a pit. He dug a pit and then his shadow fell into the pit and he started covering up the pit with mud because he wanted to get rid of the shadow. And obviously, you can't get rid of the shadow that way. So he kept filling all the mud back, but the shadow kept coming up, 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 and he was left with his shadow ultimately. And this is what is the mind. This is what Ramana says. We can't get rid of the mind. Don't do things like concentrate and all to get rid of the mind. Merely see the mind for what it is and turn your attention away from that to the immanent consciousness which you already are. Reverse the look, so to speak.
Okay, thank you, sir. Can I ask one more question? Can I ask one more question? Yeah. Nisargadatta Maharaj said that abide in I amness, witnessing. So, what other factors come in the way of realization, or simply abiding in the self or I amness is enough?
That is more than enough. You see why? Because when the thinking mind is not operating like it used to, then the dream of life no longer controls you. The dream of this imaginary future, you are no longer invested in that dream. That dream does not interest you anymore. You are out of the game. Nothing more than that is required.
Thank you.
Yes, Harish.
Hi, my wife wants to ask a question. Is that all right?
Yes, just a sec. I'm still getting used to this
Okay.
clicking on these icons.
Okay.
Yes.
Hi, my name is Roshni, and I've been listening to your talks. And well, after hearing you today, there's a lot of questions that I want to ask you. Firstly, you have said about witnessing the mind. Well, tell you frankly, there's so much witnessing that happens that basically I have issues with anxiety, and at that time the witnessing happens so much that it's just uncontrollable. And yeah, so what you said about surrendering that, and what you said about genetics and conditioning, I'm aware of all those aspects, but the thing is to understand and to realize the fear factor that comes when something doesn't go my way, and to accept that and to understand and accept myself for the way I am is very, I'm stuck here, and it's a very challenging situation for me to be in. And also, yeah, you said that it's, I've noted out that the thoughts arising have to be witnessed. But for me, it's like so much of thoughts that happen. The fear factor is so large. Like even now when the corona happened, I went into this anxiety mode, and it was very difficult for me to, uh, to make myself understand, or even my family who's been so supportive, and they know this issue about me, to understand that it is God's will that is happening, and it is something that for me I can't understand as why would God do something like this. I know I'm branching out of my uh, first issue, but why would he do something like this, as to, because there's so much suffering, so many human beings being killed, dying, the migrants, all that. So it makes me wonder as to all that you're saying. I mean, I've heard that I'm not very deep in surrender, I'm not very deep in Advaita, I'm not very deep in, I'm just beginning to understand. So yeah, so there's a whole host of questions, and I'm very confused, as you can understand. And so to accept all this, firstly to accept myself, understand myself, and then to understand what is happening around me is very challenging, and to accept that is something that is beyond my capacity. So yeah, the more I God's will, thoughts, witnessing, there's nothing but fear and anxiety in me. So how I don't know how you will help me to put it all together in a package and explain to me that this is not my will but the Lord's will.
Roshni, you see, I don't need to do anything and put anything in a package, because after all, your name is Roshni.
Yeah, I've heard that several times, but I fail to relate to that.
You see, I'll tell you this thing called fear. You know, if you remember the terrorist attacks in Mumbai in 2008,
Yeah.
a very close friend of mine, he has two daughters. Now, one daughter is adventurous, outgoing, and the other, you could say, is introverted and fear-based. And she told me one day, she said that I realized that my fear comes from my parent, because he was so fear-based himself when he was bringing us children up, that I have irrational fears.
Yeah.
After the terrorist attacks, she could not go to the movie hall because she had to sit in darkness. She thought that, you know, those exit signs and the doors will open and a terrorist will come with a gun. That is fear over which we have no control. Please understand, we didn't create the fear. So if someone tells us don't be fearful, it doesn't make sense to us. I
Absolutely.
didn't create the fear in the first place. God did. It is truly not my fear. So don't tell me I'm being unreasonable by being fearful, because I'm not doing it deliberately.
Exactly. That's what I feel. I'm not doing it.
Being fearful. So what can I do now? Now that I know that it is not my fear, it is God who has made me fearful. All I can do, instead of fighting this fear which I did not create, is that whenever it arises, no matter how often, I witness the fear arising. I accept that the fear has arisen, because that is the way it was meant to. My fight with fear is finished. I've got tired and fed up of fighting with the fear. This acceptance is witnessing. What makes one anxious is not witnessing. What makes one anxious is observing. There is a difference between witnessing and observing, because when I observe as an individual with my entire background of conditioning behind me, and I observe something and I judge it as good or bad. In witnessing, it's a blank slate. There is no judgment of good and bad in witnessing. So, this is a very important point. Please understand that anxiety is not something you are doing, it is something which is happening based on genetics and conditioning. Some people are prone to be more anxious than others and they suffer because of that. Please do understand that and accept that. And that acceptance will lead to more and more witnessing, which is observing without judging. It does not ask you for more than that. And the other point I'd like to raise here about this coronavirus and the migrants and so on, of course, it pains everyone. And those who are more sensitive will get more pain when they see that. When they see that child lying on the trolley and being wheeled and so on. Obviously, it's going to pain. But we have imposed a moral code on God. God should not do this. God should only do that. If someone has a handicapped child and you know 100 other parents who have healthy children, what do? God should not have created that handicapped child. You've
Yeah.
imposed your moral code on God. But did you ever thank God for the 99 healthy children He created? No. So we do not accept the basic structure of life, which is duality, starting with black and white, up and down, good and bad, left and right, pleasure and pain. We want only pleasure. We want only good. And so we suffer. Because as Maharaj said, the problem with us is when the river flows, we want it to flow only against one bank, which is the bank of pleasure. And if we don't get that, we are very upset. We have a complaint with God. Why did you do this? How could you do this? But to understand that life means pleasure one moment and pain another. That is the design of duality. When you accept that, life means polaric opposites. It means moments of happiness, moments of unhappiness. Then your fight with life starts reducing because God is all there is. This does not mean you don't suffer, you don't feel pain, but you accept this is the nature of life. And when I don't accept this basic nature of life, then I say God should only be good to me. Now, trust me, if you were an animal on the planet, you would be thanking God if they could. But you are looking at it only as a human being. What about the billions of other species on the planet? What about Mother Earth, which is perhaps rejoicing that pollution levels are so less? So our vision is so blinkered that we feel that only good should happen to us. That is what has happened. This teaching seeks to correct that vision. And the result is you will be grateful to God and happy for all the good things in life. Gratitude to God. You gave me a body which works well. You haven't given others. I'm so grateful for this simple fact. Gratitude starts arising more and more. Compassion starts arising more and more. The way you look at life starts changing, starts shifting. And when there's more gratitude, there's more light. The light of being present to whatever arises in the moment, not with these walls of differentiation as what should it be versus what is. The mind wants to go into a what should be. This should not be happening. This should not be the way. That is the mind. That has to be witnessed. The mind has to be witnessed. And that's what starts happening with the teaching. And then, hopefully, you see that these things don't make you as anxious as before. Thanks to the light of understanding, the fresh conditioning, you see things in a new light. My God, I never thought of this. I always complained to God about the polio patients and the handicapped children. I never thought that look at God for making so many healthy children on the planet. Then your perspective starts shifting. And then you realize my intellect is so puny compared to this vast will of the Creator, which I can never understand in life. There's no point in understanding it. I can never see the whole picture. A painting can never know why its painter created it, can it? Can a painting know the will of the painter? It cannot. So I start accepting this more and more. I accept people more and more. I accept myself more and more. I accept situations more and more. And I notice now that this ego, which was fighting with everything for survival, putting labels on everything, judging everything, that is now on shaky ground because that drama has got disturbed now because the light of consciousness now is shining through. This is what the teaching does. And the sheer fact that you are listening to it means it is already within your consciousness. The sheer fact, these words are not outside you, Roshni. You are conscious, and so they are appearing within your own consciousness. I may appear to be outside you, but if you were a dead body, you could not hear me. So all this is arising in your own consciousness. It is not apart from you. It is not separate from you. It is telling you as that which is part of you, go easy on yourself. Don't be too hard on yourself. Let it happen.
So how do I, from here, what do I do to just let the consciousness grow or to be more accepting and not so confined in my rigidity?
Nothing absolutely is required to be done. You have to allow it to happen. It will happen. You will find that during the day, a certain interaction has changed on its own, or a certain event. You will find that now you're looking at it in a different light. That will happen. That has to be allowed to happen. You see, the ego wants to be back in control in the seat. Now, I want to do something to fasten the process. I want to do something so that the outcome is guaranteed. That is the ego coming in through the back door. Because that's how it gets its identity. Just forget about it. It will happen.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yes, Sunita.
Hi, Namaste Gautam. This is Sunita. And first of all, I would like to say zillion thanks to Baba and to you. I'm really, really grateful. For many, this quarantine time would be like, they're suffering and they say that I'm stuck. Even though I'm away from my family, my husband and my son are in Luxembourg and I'm here. I had asked you a question and you helped me with your podcast. I would say this 53 days or 51 days have been pure bliss to me because through all your podcasts, to all your videos, I'm able to come more closer to God, more closer to Baba. There is, I would say, there is a lot of physical suffering. Uh, but earlier, I used to feel bad all the time. But your podcast, which helped me understand that, you have to accept the things the way they are. It is very difficult for me every time when there is pain. But, it's really helped me. So thanks a lot. Really, really grateful to you. My question today to you is, first of all, it's a request. So once I go back to Luxembourg, I would love to join. I would feel blessed to join your Sunday sessions through this Zoom. So I would request to, you and your team to keep the Zoom calls on, even if you have live satsangs.
Yes.
And second thing is, I have a question. I heard the meditation on faith a few days back, and I've been hearing night and day. It really, I felt that you've specially sent that meditation for me, But the thing is, since I'm suffering, I always am in the fear that, I have a physical issue and it half the time comes down. So I'm elated that, yes, I'm going to be okay. And suddenly it kinds of, what happens is it comes back, it surfaces back again. And that time I almost have a panic attack. All the understanding, all the thing which I've been going through this journey or spiritual journey or learning process, it goes to a kaput, So I feel really bad as to what happened to all the understanding, what happened to all the prayers, why did I go back again, why am I crying, why am I fearful? So, how do I deal with that?
Simple, Sunita. It's happening because it's God's will. Stop trying to control this. Stop trying to control that, when the health goes a bit down, I get a panic attack. Why is this happening in spite of all this understanding? Why am I not understanding this deep enough? Forget it. Be grateful and thankful to God that your glass is half full. At least half the time the understanding is there. Why not look at things positively? If you look at yourself now compared to 5 years ago, do you see a difference in the person you are, in the peace that you feel? Obviously, when we have physical limitations, our focus becomes the physical limitation and the pain and suffering along with it. Accept it. Don't want this perfect picture of being peaceful and tranquil for each and every breath of my life. It's an earnest want, I understand that, but you will get to it when you get out of the way. And one more thing I would suggest is you could take this as a practice, but let the dialogue change. And instead of saying, I am suffering, I am this, change it to suffering is happening. And you will notice that I am this, I am that starts decreasing, and more witnessing is happening. That is why Maharaj would say that, let's say your past conditioning is I see something and I hear something. That's for all of us. I saw this happening today on the road. I saw that. I heard this. I heard that. Change it to something is seen and something is heard. Then the grip of the me, which wants to control everything, that starts opening up. So I would say your sharing has been very beautiful. And what you're expressing is human nature. We don't expect all of us are going to be Buddhas and we can, bear all the suffering. Live life. Life is good moments and unhappy moments. And obviously, a physical pain, your whole focus will be on the pain in the moment. So accept that as part of the flow of life, knowing that God or grace or whatever you call it, or Baba, will give you the strength to deal with the situation. Knowing that is the grace of the Guru. That is the grace of consciousness. That is why these teachings have come to us. We have not gone to the teachings. Our good fortune is that amongst the many people, we have received this teaching, what Ramesh ji would call Allah ke pyare. Be grateful for that. That if God has brought you till this point, why is He going to abandon you here? He is not going to abandon you here. Maharaj, in the 70s, in Khetwadi, in an attic, a Marathi-speaking man came out with a book written by a Polish man whose first language was not English and neither Marathi. That book became a worldwide bestseller in the 70s called I Am That. Foreigners came from all over the world. No Google Maps, no internet, no Airbnb. They landed up at his attic. And so Maharaj would tell them, you think that you have taken a plane, landed in Bombay, and come to my attic. But the truth of the matter is that consciousness has dragged you by the ear and got you to me. That is the grace of the teaching. We have to be thankful. Forget this teaching, any teaching. This is for everyone drawn to any teaching. That is the grace of consciousness which has got you there. You see, we have to be grateful for that. Not question it, where did you disappear in the moments I needed you? That's part of the human nature.
I have one more question, Gautam. So you say we have to witness. So always, all these days or all these years, my mind has been always like a chatterbox. Now that I've heard your talks and all, when I do prayers or when I do meditation, I'd like to, I'm there in the moment and I feel that the thinking mind is thinking about the future or it's going back to the past. I correct myself and I'm being there that time. So is this called as witnessing? Because I have never felt that before.
This is witnessing, but the mistake is you feel you are correcting yourself. Correcting yourself is happening because of the witnessing. You see, supposing you're sitting in meditation and you're thinking of work suddenly, okay? Like at 3 p.m. I have to do this, something. That is the thought which came and is now you're thinking about it. And suddenly you realize, my God, I was involved in thinking. That is the witness. You were the involvement. So you cannot stop the involvement. You were the involvement. The thinking mind got involved in this thought and created a stream of events in the mind. Suddenly there was a realization, my God, I was involved in that. That is the witness. That is not something you are doing to cut off that involvement. So I am witnessing is incorrect. Witnessing is happening. That involvement getting cut off is not in your control because you were the one who ran away with the thought. So please understand that it's an important point. And for everyone, I would like to share that what Sunita is referring to is a series of audio podcasts which I have created based on sayings and quotations of Ramesh, which I enjoyed. And I share those, and I also share questions and answers which come to me on these podcasts. They are about 10 minutes each. And if you go to the website, you can find them. So, Sunita, I'm very glad that the teaching has impacted you so deeply.
Yes, this 50 days have been a really blessed, and I'm really grateful to Baba, who's my Sadguru, and to you. Thank you so much.
Most welcome. I think we are going above the time, so we'll take one more uh, question. Yes, Amit?
Yeah, hi Gautam. Deep regards from my side. And I'm reading your book, which is The End of Separation, which you suggest me to read. And I would like to ask a question before the chapter of The Cry of the Ego. So, this entire chapter is about the God versus I or me. So I'll just read out here a little paragraph. Without pronouncing words, say, I am formless, desireless, and pure as space. My sense, I am the nature of God. It is only because I am that I see the world and I think of the God. Therefore, God is because I am. If I am not, God is not. I will give you the formula which will do everything for you. Think continuously in terms of I am God. There is no God without me. When you are firmly established in this, whatever is unimportant will gradually fall away. So, can you just elaborate a little because who is this I? I is the pure consciousness, or I is this the ego?
Okay. Which is your favorite God?
Uh, I incline towards the form of Shiva.
Okay.
Yeah.
So let's say you thought of Shiva, you thought of Ganpati, you thought of Krishna, or whatever.
Yeah.
For that thought to arise, you have to be conscious.
True.
So you are there before the thought of Krishna, Ganpati, or Shiva.
Yeah. True.
So who is the real God? This awareness, this pure awareness, this screen of consciousness on which even the thought of God arises. I think of Krishna. I am prior to that thought of Krishna. So that is pointing to that awareness, not to the individual ego. You see, like I say, that if all your memory was wiped out right now, if I pressed a button, you would not even know your name, but you would know that you exist. That is the God. That is consciousness. That is not the ego. The ego is the I am Amit. And the I am is the consciousness. Is that clear?
Yeah. Uh, I feel very conscious these days because, even writing a mail and, I would like to avoid this word. I don't know why, but I don't know this. Is it like, is it I am, witnessing of I, or I'm trying to distinguish between the ego or the consciousness.
The ego is the me and my story. So anytime you feel yourself circling back to me and my story, that is the ego. But who is the one who knows that is the consciousness.
Right.
All your thoughts on doership is the ego. If you just sit back for even half an hour in the day, it's very easy actually to contemplate this ego and its gymnastics. And you will probably laugh, because what happens is recognition of all that takes place, that this is how the ego functions. This is what the ego does. This person said this to me and this was my reply. Why did I reply that way? Was it based on doership, or was it a pure reply not based on doership? It's quite actually a beautiful experience which starts happening in that sense. The teaching starts sinking in deeper and deeper and deeper. And then what happens? Silence is the natural outcome, because silence outside is stillness inside. Stillness means stillness of the thinking mind. When the thinking mind gets more and more still, you will find you no longer want to give too many opinions and judgments on anything, what people say. This government is doing a good job, bad job, this movie is good, this movie is bad, this person said this person said that. That drama, you see, which you were so invested, me and my opinion versus you and your opinion. You start disengaging from this drama. Then naturally, one gets more and more silent. That is what happens. That is what happens. Now, someone may be prone to be a talker. That doesn't mean that natural characteristic will change. Some people talk more than others. Some people are more quiet than others. Those are natural tendencies. But the mind, the chattering of the mind is what stops. That compulsion. There are people who talk compulsively because they are afraid that if they don't, nobody will pay attention to them. You can ask any therapist this. If I stop talking, no one will pay attention to me. Me. This is what conditioning does. So out of fear, the person starts talking, so it feels acknowledged. These are the antics of the ego. When all this is seen, the ego is laid bare. And then what happens is silence.
Yeah, I completely agree with you, Gautam, because I'm observing myself, because I have already gone through the tough time, and still I'm facing the tough time in terms of my own relationship. And I ask myself, is it really needed? Because I see myself, and I ask this question to myself, that is it really needed to answer? It is not really needed, because it's it is it is the acceptance is already there. That if I have already accepted the thing the way I am, and my circumstances, my surroundings, then I've already accepted, and I'm in the process of doing the my best surrender with my body, mind, and soul. So yeah, I mean, I don't prefer to give the answer, but I feel myself more in conflict way, uh, where I have to answer, in term of like the legal battle, or the some legal battle which I am facing, where you have to give your answer, and my nature is not that way to justifying again and again your own things, or your own thinkings, which I feel is really don't matter at all.
Yes, it can be quite painful, because sometimes due to social structures and conditioning, we are forced to wear hats and play roles which is not really in alignment with our nature. I understand that. But two things. This could not have happened if it wasn't God's will. You are exactly where you are because you were meant to be, no matter how much you're uncomfortable and don't like it. Two, as Ramesh ji would say, the four words of the Bible. This too shall pass. That becomes the mantra. After all, it is our life's experience. Everything in our life has come and gone. All our experiences have come and gone. Joys have come and gone. Pains have come and gone. And we know that we will also come and go. Everything is so transient. We know this for ourselves. This too shall pass should be a natural mantra that arises within us. This is what the teaching is pointing to. That when you've gone to see the movie of life, you've forgotten that the movie is projected on a screen and you took the movie to be real. You took the characters to be real. You took the entire drama to be real. You took yourself to be real, but you forgot that without that screen in the cinema hall, the screen of consciousness, the movie of life would not have happened. And then you realize that consciousness is playing all the characters in the movie, the ones I like, the ones I don't like. Consciousness is watching this movie. Consciousness has directed the movie. Consciousness has produced the movie. Consciousness is the screen on which the movie is played. And therefore, all there is consciousness.
Yeah, thanks, Gautam.
So we'll end with a couple of minutes of silence. This is a very difficult time. This thought arose because I spoke to a friend of mine who is a doctor who has been called to help treat COVID patients in the hospitals. And acceptance that this has happened in our lifetime, something unimaginable. We could never have conceived of this situation. My friends who are surgeons and doctors never thought they would be called, and they have gone happily because it is part of the oath they have taken. We have to thank God if we are healthy and fine. Each day of our lives, we have never been grateful for it. Now at least we should. Now at least we should acknowledge how our freedom can be taken away from us so swiftly. Humility should naturally arise knowing this. Not my will, O Lord, but thine be done. Jesus said this after he told God, why hast thou forsaken me? Then the understanding, not my will, O Lord, but thine be done. Acceptance that even this is God's will. Tears may arise, God's will. God never guaranteed us a bed of roses. We want that. And mostly spiritual learnings come through suffering. At least let's be grateful to God for the suffering which has brought us on the spiritual path. Let's be grateful for that at least. That if this had not happened, if I hadn't faced these losses in life, I would not have looked at the deeper meaning of life, the deeper meaning of happiness. What is that happiness which does not depend on pleasures? That's the true happiness I'm now seeking, which is nothing but peace of mind. Sukha Shanti. Or as the Buddha said, samsara is dukkha, nirvana is shanti, peace. But he also said, and they are not two. In this world of suffering, nirvana is there.